Go ahead and dive into it. I'm not going to wait any longer. My fantasy MVP for the 2022 season was Giants running back Saquon Barkley. His ADP was 2.4. I'm big on value here, and if you took him in the second round, you were granted with the success. He was the ninth RB off the board. He finished better than guys like Swift, Mixon, Cook, Najee, and Taylor, who were drafted in front of him. He was so consistent this year, averaging just under 18 points per game. And not to mention, the reason why he fell so low is because of this negative connotation that he had with injuries in the seasons prior. And they were non existent in 2022, which is why he found such success, and which why, if you took the plunge on him in the second round, you're granted with a great reward. And I toiled between Jonathan Taylor and Josh Jacobs for my fantasy MVP. I didn't want to be too biased to my hometown team. And honestly, I think Josh Jacobs is the better story, right? But ultimately, this is kind of like the redeeming story in the NFL to me as well. Saquon Barkley battled injuries over the first few years of his career, primed up, hyped up as a fantasy all-star, only to kind of just leave you simmering year in and year out. And he kind of came back to form in 2022. And another reason why is I didn't have any shares of Josh Jacobs this year, so I couldn't really vouch for him. He was my fantasy MVP, and that was Saquon Barkley, running back for the New York Giants. Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't see how you can argue with that choice, man. I regretfully traded him away in the only league that I had him in, and it was one of those dynasty leagues. And the reason why is like my team was so imbalanced. I had a lot of running backs. I had David Montgomery. I had Najee Harris. I was loaded at running back. And I was like, all right, I can trade him away, and I trade him away for like a wide receiver too before the season started, and I regretted it so much. And so I didn't get any taste of that during this season. Like I literally, in all the leagues I played, didn't have Saquon Barkley on
See, that's
any
kind
of
of
my
how,
teams.
yeah.
And see, that's another reason why I diversify my portfolio, because I don't want to miss out on those. Like every year, there's like 4 or 5 guys that it's like they're literally their ADP compared to what they're doing is like crazy. So they're winning leagues, and I hate to miss out on those guys, but you still do. You still do miss out on these guys no matter how many leagues you play in. And Saquon really proved, look, he wasn't perfect all year. He wasn't necessarily like winning you leagues or winning you matchups all season long. But if you drafted him, you are not disappointed at all. So I think he definitely qualifies for a fantasy MVP.
Yeah, and we'll touch on this because we're starting to turn into this dynasty narrative, right? Because it's getting into the off season here. He's going to be 26 next season, which is that's the pinnacle, that's the prime. 26, 27. What can he do? Can he stay healthy again? And if he is, he's a top 5 fantasy running back for sure, which is what his finish represented on the year. And
There's
there
a
you have it.
possibility that, look, as long as the injuries that he had in the past don't affect him long term, there's a possibility that all that time that he missed can play into his longevity, meaning he
Very
has less
true.
miles, less tread on the tires because of all that time he missed. So he could last a little longer like a Eckler.
I couldn't agree more. Where is Austin Eckler? I had him on here earlier. Whatever. We'll get to it later. But yes, all good points, all good thoughts. Saquon Barkley, Gabriel's MVP of the 2022 NFL fantasy football season.